Always trust.
We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Prvog januara preuzela je dužnost generalne sekretarke Vijeća za regionalnu saradnju. Od 2013. do 2017. predsjedavala je Odborom za evropske integracije Parlamenta Albanije, a od 2005. do 2017. bila je zastupnica u albanskom parlamentu. Razgovarali smo o izazovima novog mandata, o neophodnosti regionalne saradnje, o predanosti zemalja zapadnog Balkana ulasku u Evropsku uniju, odlivu mozgova i projektima koji će približiti regiju. Za Al Jazeeru govori Majlinda Bregu.
Ms. Bregu, very welcome to program of Al Jazeera. You took position of Secretary General of Regional Cooperation Council in January. What do you see are challenges ahead you?
Well, there is not a secret anymore that 2019 is going to be a shaping up moment and a shaping up year for the history of the organization as well, but on the whole regional cooperation. Now we are on the third year after building up the idea of regional economic area at the Trieste summit, and only, let's say, 1 year after the digital summit and the digital agenda on the Sofia summit. And as you noticed, I mentioned digital summit. That's what we are looking forward now in Belgrade. So I think that this is going to be the very first year when real and concrete tangible deliverables should happen for the region in terms of the regional economic area. To say it quite simply, RCC is involved and follows carefully the development of the regional economic area, which in simplistic terms it's kind of the model or the baby of the idea of the single market that European Union founded years and years ago. And now we are following and trying to project the regional economic area development and success under 4 pillars, which are trade, investment, mobility, and digital. And we might discuss and go in details in each of them, but the ones in which we are looking very much forward and we are committed and hopefully to have success stories not for the organization itself, but for the process of the regional cooperation, are the components on digital and mobility. At least that's what we are quite focused and would like to see happening by mid-year. And definitely the one on the investment and then on trade as well are having some positive developments, somehow kind of a tango dance, 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
You have mentioned so many topics that we will discuss as well further in the interview, but I have to mention that recently in Vienna you stated that Europe is a state of mind and the empowered Western Balkans shall speak the language of unity among citizens. But do you see the real commitment from the Balkan leaders actually that they really want to make a change needed to enter the EU?
Listen, I've been traveling to the region from the very first days of my mandate. So I decided to go through these political consultations, not only because governments and not only for the sake of having kind of an enhanced dialogue with the governments and politicians in different economies, because they are our main counterparts in the story. So we would like very much to be successful and facilitate successful agreements, but definitely the first input comes from the economies itself. I think that this is kind of a well-informed choice now, shared by all the politicians in the region. The regional cooperation is a must agenda. And I'm pretty much aware that citizens as well are quite, let me say and be kind of spicy on that, are even exceeding a little bit the politicians on that regard. You'll find a commitment everywhere in capitals whenever you meet politicians in there. But citizens as well, 72% of them, and still these are the data of the next to come Balkan Barometer, are supporting the regional cooperation, which speaks a lot. It speaks a lot that now this is a platform, an idea that has already been rooted in the concept of the regional perspective. While we have an increase as well this year in terms of supporting European integration of the region forward, but still the regional cooperation is the component that stands above. So for the first time we are going to have and you are the first broadcaster who are having these data live. We are not yet to deliver those. but only as kind as to make this interview a little bit more interesting. For the first year after 4 years in a row, this time the majority of citizens of Western Balkans, 56%, agree that European integration is going to make a huge impact and change positively their lives. Still, as I mentioned earlier, 72% of them believe that regional cooperation is really going to work to improve their life.
Sure, but people are also very much in the media see this nationalistic, ethnic nationalism narratives, which give citizens also the feeling of uncertainty, I would say. So how does that affect the regional cooperation? And are things different behind closed doors?
I am aware of all those meticulosities that are present in the region in terms of political speaking, rhetorics, and political systems. Well, definitely what we could do, and this is something that I believe and I insist on that, we could not really enter and solve the political disputes or bilateral disputes among economies. And this is not even our mission here at the RCC. But I'm pretty much sure that whenever we try to develop agendas that bring people together, the region together in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education, in terms of giving to people the possibility and the chance of mobility, in terms of recognizing their diplomas, in terms of building up platforms, digital platforms, supporting successful models of startups, these will definitely enhance the regional cooperation better than the political rhetorics.
The biggest issue for Serbian EU path is question of Kosovo. What do you think when it will be resolved and how?
Well, I would like very much, and I think that I share this opinion with everybody in the region, to see the dialogue back in these relations between Serbia and Kosovo, and less confrontational language. I know that time after time there is still bitterness in the region. There is still rancor. There are still flashbacks from the history that is not really left behind of us. And I wouldn't be quite naive to say that everything is gloomy. But on the other hand, not everything is doom in the region. So I'm pretty much confident that even through among difficulties, there are never, and I would never trust anybody who would say that there are some political disputes and big problems that could not be resolved. Take the example of North Macedonia now, the Republic of North Macedonia and Greece. It really took a long time for them to reach the agreement, the Prespa agreement. And I'm pretty much sure now that they have built it kind of a successful model for the region. Not only because there were two prime ministers who at a certain moment decided not to put their dialogue and their agenda of cooperation and solving the name dispute within the red boxes and the red line boxes, but because they understood that there is no other way around to proceed on this common path of, call it European membership, I would really like to call it transformational agenda for the Western Balkans, that leaving behind and trying to build even upon the differences that are still present in the region.
100% custom duties that Kosovo authorities introduced for goods from Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina isn't also helping in resolving this dispute as well. So will this be resolved anytime soon, and are you working on it?
I'm quite hopeful that it will be resolved very soon, or it has to be resolved. There is no other way around. Otherwise, this is not going to be only a problem of trade anymore. And I'm pretty much sure that this is not a problem of trade. And if we could really make kind of not, I wouldn't say comparison, but if we would like to think upon how much we are going to lose in terms, not only in economic terms, trade-wise, but even in the whole concept of trying to push the regional development forward and trying to enhance our common market altogether. Because that is going to be the worst message then if things will not be solved quickly. The region itself could not be successful enough if economies will be divided one by one, because we are not a big market. So all in all, we are 18 million inhabitants. which speaks a lot that we need to find the ways on how to cooperate better with each other, then there is no sense to invest and to think on national agendas on investments or platforms, which are one of our other priorities. Because you need to see things happening in real life and in reality. And that's why we need it as well for the business environment. Sometimes it's uneven, not because of real difficulties, but because problems pop up when they are really unexpected.
Yes, you are mentioning this single market. What are the ways and possibilities to actually come together and bring this economic single market in region?
Well, there might be different ways, but it should be one path, which to keep the region embarked on the European perspective and keeping alive this European narrative in the region. I was looking to the latest data, those that have been published recently by World Bank, but even our data on the Balkan barometer that I mentioned to you earlier. And there are really interesting figures on that. So the region itself is really having kind of an increased growth in economic growth in terms of GDP, and last year was 3.9%. On the other hand, still 2018 was not an easy year for the economic growth, which speaks a lot that we need to be focused on how to foster the economic growth in the region. And on that regard, we could open different windows. We could not impose and we could not consider ourselves successful in moving up the economic growth in the region if we'll have less people trained on the digital skills. Everywhere in the world, unfortunately, few people, few organizations, few institutions or business speak the language of diplomas. Now it's the language of talent and it's the language of skills. And for us, this should mean a lot as well. So we could not do it better if we don't upskill ourselves in the technological revolution. If we don't make it possible for women to be in the labor market. It's only 40% of the women in this region employed and part of the labor market, or the other way around, 60% are not.
How can we increase those numbers?
There are a lot of models that have been functional and successful all over the world. In terms and women-wise, you have the Scandinavian model. So women that have been supported with policies to enter the labor market. But here in this area, it's not only policies under the social component. That's why I insisted on this upskilling of qualities, because the industrial, let's say, development in the region is quite old-fashioned. I know that we need money for that. We need more investments for that. We need loans for that, and money is never enough. So far, the region from 2004 has received more than 13.5 billion euros. And this is spent on different projects for the economic development, connectivity, and infrastructure. Still, everybody is unhappy with the current situation in terms of infrastructure and connectivity. Everybody, and in the region we have an increase of number of people who would like to leave and find a job elsewhere in the European Union. Last year, those who were ready to go and work abroad were only 4% in the region. This year, the number increased to 9%, which has even more than doubled. And this speaks a lot on how the situation in current terms in the region is. Still, unemployment is a very big problem in the region. No one will have a magical formula or a recipe.
Brain drain is actually a problem for almost all Balkan countries. So can regional cooperation tackle this problem as well?
For the moment, I think that we are in the phase of identifying, because first the figures are, the first reaction is alarm. You know, the figures this year seems to be alarming. And this is everywhere in the region. Then second-handed, you need to go through an analysis why it's happening. It's happening because people do not feel comfortable, or the level of unemployment is quite high and they trust that they could find an employment somewhere. It is because they don't trust, let's say, that they will have a fair and equal treatment in their homelands. So First, we need to come to a clear understanding before building up the right indicators. We are going to have kind of a mapping of policies when it goes to youth. Based on that, we will develop and then try to let everybody know which might be the best models to work upon in terms of brain drain, youth, startup ideas, the involvement of local municipality and local branches on that, because we usually speak of policies. But the first ones to touch the reality and to deliver services are municipalities. So for all of that university level, I'm really much confident that these mutual recognition of diploma and qualifications agreement that we are following carefully and will happen, the signature at least will happen within the July of this year, will create, if it will not really boost immediately this mobility, let's say, and facilitate the mobility of people to be employed somewhere else, if not in their homelands, it will definitely kind of reshape their perspective that if for a doctor it's impossible to find a job in Sarajevo in a certain moment, his diploma and his qualifications will be recognized, and if he has an offer from Belgrade, he might go in there. So that's we are trying to push concrete agendas. Said that, nobody could expect that miracles will happen within 2019 or in 2 years' time. But it's quite important to find those recipes that will work better and faster.
Commissioner Johannes Hahn said that there will be no discount on the membership criteria for almost all the countries that are waiting. So for how long do you think Western Balkans will be in this waiting line for a membership?
If this question would have been posed to me while I was a Minister of European Integration in Albania, I would have said that, okay, so we could not wait there in loose line all the time. 2025 was a promise made by the European Commission, by the President of the European Commission, that should be a line for all Western Balkans. But now I think that I could upgrade my answer. It's quite important not to consider it anymore a process of dates, because what is the most important thing for the region is to see things happening and change the standards in here. I wouldn't really believe that it's going to bother anybody here from Bosnia and Herzegovina or from Albania or from Serbia and Belgrade. If they will have their best educational and school and universities in their capitals or in their homelands, they wouldn't really care on how to immediately to move forward. Or if the health system will be a very good one, then they will always try to follow and then take the services next to their home. Or if they will be quite let's say, confident that nobody is going to ask from them some money and take some money out of their pocket to bribe a judge and then for somebody else to win a case at the court. They would like to live next and with their people in their homeland. So it is more than an accession, a date issue. It is, I tend to believe day by day, we need to be focused more on the transformational agenda of our region.
But you have mentioned so many things that need improvement in the region.
Because there are so many needs.
Yes, there are. But what is the pace of these improvements? Do you see? I mean, I don't think citizens would agree and that they can see these tangible improvements.
When you ask me about meeting politicians in the region and everywhere, I said, yes, we have been through these meetings, but in none of them, I haven't tried, and my interlocutors as well, to speak in terms and in this fascinated language of rhetorics that, well, the region is wonderful, beautiful, the life of people, we are here to improve their quality of life and so on. It's not that I do not believe in that, but now I do believe that people need to touch upon real things. And to touch upon them, we need to tell them day by day, what does it really mean, Europeanization and European membership? It means to tell them that if that piece of road is built properly, it is because EU money was spent on that. If you will speak more, surf more on the internet and will pay less, it is because EU is backing that agenda, if the rule of law is one of the main concerns, but as well one of those obligations that you should target, it is because this push and pressure from the EU side on making the region more democratic. And I'm pretty much sure that it might be difficult for politicians to understand it immediately because of the cycle of the politics. It's only 4 years. And then definitely they would like to have a success story on that one, even in terms of dates and EU membership. But for the citizens, it's much more important to have a job, and it's much more important to feel safe at their home.
But could this rising anti-European populist approach be successful in terms of European enlargement?
That is one of the concerns that we do have. So we all know that we are swimming in times of uncertainty, and we are quite aware that these might affect the agenda of regional cooperation or Western Balkans advancement to the EU membership. We don't know what's going to happen after the European elections. There are chances that populists might get, let's say, and eat a bigger piece of cake. Maybe the other way will happen, so they will not be so successful. But we are trying to arrange and think upon how to approach then the new institutions in Brussels and so on, in trying to keep trace and present the region as it is, with enough potential, still huge challenges and problems, but that is anchored to a clear perspective. So it's not that we are not worried. We are worried, but I wouldn't say that we are more worried than the Europeans themselves are.
Is there anything, any event that could in any way destabilize Western Balkans? Let's say, for example, the NATO membership for Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, or some other things that could happen?
Well, in terms of security, that might be a concern. There are different stages of development when it comes to NATO membership, but as well, this is an issue that is bilateral among one economy and then NATO in this regard. Even that whatever is happening, kind of agreements signed that enhance the security of the region, those are always welcomed. I would say that those shake-ups and problems do not always come only from outsiders. Big problems might be not being enough, let's say, capable or ambitious to build up once, I wouldn't say forever, but a well-established democratic, let's say, changes in our economies or in our countries, so region-wise. So not always the fall stands out of your door. Sometimes it's even inside. And that is quite important then, so in one hand to keep and still have a secure, stable and safe region, and on the other hand to have constructive and healthy criticism from media, civil society, that could really push the governments to deliver on the benefit of citizens.
We are approaching the digital summit in Belgrade that will happen in a few days. BH officially requested postponement of the signing to the agreement on the reduction of roaming services of the Western Balkans region. This agreement is planned to be signed, so will it be signed by other countries, and will probably Bosnia be excluded from it?
No, I have to contradict you completely, because Bosnia-Herzegovina has embarked already, and the agreement has been approved some weeks ago to the Council of Ministers. There have been difficult moments during the whole negotiations on the roaming agreement. Definitely that's why the negotiations happen. You need to have everybody sit on the table and then hear about their concerns. Somehow there might have been some delays from one economy to another, but rightly speaking, Bosnia and Herzegovina, once they promised, they embarked, and they even exceeded our expectations in terms of approving locally and being ready for the signature in the digital summit.
Transport infrastructure is one of the main goals of RCC's agenda. There are 11 transport infrastructure projects which are part of the 4th connectivity agenda package. Can we expect these projects to become a reality soon?
Yeah, 11 projects were approved last year, while there are 57 projects in total that have been kind of supported from this blending instrument, financial instrument of EU Commission, which is called WBIF, which is the Western Balkans Investment Framework. So when banks bring up, let's say, their money in this blended instrument in a common and shared basket. There are some projects in the pipeline, and this is not only infrastructure-wise, so there is infrastructure, there are projects on the digital as well component. I would have liked very much to see it happening and even in a near future. So it's not that that is really going as fast as we would wish. There are 800 kilometers built, ports as well, or as it is the one in Albania, that of Durrës. So there are different projects anywhere in the region. Well, that is not enough. In terms of infrastructure, I would say that the region is really doing physical infrastructure, that the region is doing really poorly. So it's still, we lose almost one day to get connected to each other. So I have to travel 9 hours to go back in Tirana by car in winter time, or then I could pick and choose 9 hours by car or 10 hours by plane. So it's win-win. And the same goes with from Sarajevo to Skopje and so on. So that will really be, it's still a problem in the region. And that is really where efforts and money as well should be invested more.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.